Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the show created for you, the armed citizen. Join our hosts and subject matter experts as we talk about guns and gear, practical training and knowledge, Second Amendment issues, and the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Everybody, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, coming to you from our studios just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, fresh off of a week-long hiatus. If you're a regular listener of the show, you already know that Mark and I skipped last week because we were both under the weather. I am feeling much better, but that brings me to an important note about this episode. I'm flying solo, so I have completely zero adult supervision. The co-host chair is empty. Mark's mic is turned off, and he is missing in action. Actually, that's not true. He's just not feeling well enough to rejoin us tonight. He wanted me to pass along his regrets. Anyway, regardless, Mark hasn't been released from quarantine, and I'm sure that you, as do I, hope that he gets better soon and is able to rejoin us next episode. So with that, Mark, get better. We will talk to you soon, we hope, but the show has to go on, right? But anyway, so before we get into this week's episode, I want to remind everyone that you can connect with us after the show at shootersnation.com, where you can contact us, send us feedback, sign up for the Shooters Nation Mail Blast mailing list. We hope that you're already on that. If you're not, why? We also hope that you will follow us on Instagram as @ShootersNationRadio and on Facebook.com/ShootersNation. While you're on Facebook, be sure to make Zuckerberg happy and join the Shooters Nation community where you can interact with other listeners, some of our guest subject matter experts, and even me and Mark. And finally, if you like what you're hearing, you can help support the show and make future episodes possible by donating all of your money to us at patreon.com/ShootersNation. And you can support us for free by writing a positive review on the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the hood of your ex's car with a screwdriver, and all sorts of other places that we really can't be held responsible for. I think I'm done throwing Mark under the bus, so let's get straight into it. Our guest for this episode is, this is once again one of these reasons why I'm so sad that we're not doing YouTube live videos, but we have the lovely Miss Avery Skipalis of Skip's Tactical Solutions. Avery, welcome to Shooters Nation.
Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. You're gonna have to put up with me tonight. You don't even have Mark to balance this out, so I feel really sorry for you. I'm not sure how this experience is going to work out for you. This may be the first and last time we ever see you. So,
I think we're gonna have fun, though.
I think we'll have fun. It's gonna be fun. We can always make fun of Mark because he can't defend himself. He's not here. Avery, let me tell the folks a little bit about you, and then I want you to kind of fill in the gaps if I can, please, because you're a name that some of our listeners may not have even heard of before. But you got an interesting story. So again, you go by the nickname Skip. That's short for Skipalis, correct?
Yes.
You don't like skip where you walk and stuff like that, right? So, but you're an active duty veteran, which I don't know. Does that technically make you a veteran, or does that just mean you're active duty enlisted? But you're a member of the United States Armed Forces.
Yes, I currently am still.
You are still, and you are a firearms instructor in the military. And you've been doing that. Your bio says for over 9 years. So that's a good run.
Yes, I actually just hit 10 years.
10 years. That is fantastic. Okay. And so you're also a certified Glock Advanced Armorer, which is neat. I mean, so people always wonder, why doesn't the military use Glocks, blah, blah, blah. Well, they must, or somebody in the military must. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a Glock armorer.
Yes. So we have are operators that currently use Glocks.
Yeah. You use the O word. So operators operating operationally. That hints at something cool, right? So you're involved with Special Operations Command.
I actually used to be involved with Special Operations Command.
Okay. So not anymore?
Not anymore.
Okay. Well, and so you've also attended Sig Sauer's armorers classes, it looks like. The same for FNH, the Special Operations Command armorers courses. And then you've also done several advanced shooting schools across the United States as part of your career in the military. So tell our people, what exactly do you do?
Currently, I am a combat arms instructor in the Air Force. And for the Air Force, we have a dedicated job to teaching our service members how to shoot. And I'm actually a gunsmith as well.
So when you and I spoke the other day, just getting to know each other a little bit, you mentioned a key point about that the United States Air Force, your armorers are a bit different, or your instructors are a bit different in the sense that you have dual roles, right? So you do armor and instructor. Is that right? Or how did that work out?
Yeah, so we get sent to a school where we completely change our, I guess, the code for our job, our AFSC, and we teach and we instruct. So they teach us how to instruct our students, and then we also get taught how to fix the firearms.
No kidding. So that kind of sinks the whole, there are those who can, and then there are those who teach mentality. You're both. You're the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. So in reading your bio on your website, it also says that you have a very neat mission statement. And it's essentially this, folks. Avery's mission is to effectively teach the skills, attitude, and knowledge necessary to own and safely operate a firearm for personal, home protection, and sport. And it goes on to say that Avery thinks it's important that not only men, but women feel like they're in control of their own safety. Sometimes it's hard to believe that you can do something until you see someone who looks like you doing it. And those things really resonate with us here at Shooters Nation because, frankly, that's what we're about, is we're trying to bring good content to good people to help them survive the worst possible moments of their lives. And that is basically, sounds like what you're doing too. So
yeah,
you're taking what the military has taught you, and I guess you're sorting out which parts of that are applicable to the civilian world, and then you're bringing that to them in a way that's approachable and accessible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, very cool. I think this is gonna be a fun episode, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Let's kind of take this from the approach of, I want to get to know you. I want our listening audience to get to know you. And that includes Mark, because now he's a listener tonight, which is really funny. But this is the start of a journey, hopefully, with you. And we, if you enjoyed the experience, we hope you'll come back on again. That's getting ahead of ourselves. How did you get started in firearms? Have you always been a gun person, or did you discover that interest somewhere along the way after you signed on the dotted line with Uncle Sam?
I was at a point in my career to where I could change my job, and I wanted a challenge. So what I was doing at the time just wasn't challenging enough, and I wanted something different. I had no idea how difficult it would be, when it comes to firearms. And so I just wanted to change it up. So
you had the option of choosing different, I guess the Air Force doesn't call them MOSs, right? I'm in generic terms, but your specialty, and firearms instruction was one of them. And I guess, right, that's how you ended up in this place. As a recruit yourself, how were you with firearms when it came to qualifying? Was it something you enjoyed doing? Did it come to you naturally? What was it about that drew you in and made you think, hey, this is something I really want to do moving forward?
I was at a point in my career where I could actually change my job. So I looked at the different options that were out there, and I wanted a challenge. Firearms were something that I just wasn't good at. I didn't like them. I hated going to the range. So that was obviously going to be a huge challenge for me. So I decided to try to become a firearms instructor.
Very cool. So you took something that was not necessarily a strong point and maybe a bit of a specter to you, and you met it head on. And not only did you say, I'm going to meet this thing head on, I'm going to get good at it, and then I'm going to teach other people how to be good at it.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So you've got the heart of a teacher, really.
Yes.
Okay. So that sounds important for somebody that's in that line of work. That's fantastic. So, how did that from your experience in the military, how did that transition into something that you wanted to do for the civilian world? Did you see something going on around you just in society in general? Or, I'm a fan of veteran entrepreneurs, right? Or was it an opportunity to say, hey, I don't want to work for Uncle Sam forever. So this is what I want to do when I get out. Or you tell me about that. Was it a mixture of both?
So funny story. I've always had people reach out to me within the community that know what I actually do.
Uh-huh.
They ask, can I take them out to the range? If I can teach them how to shoot, how much do I charge? And it was something that I never really did on the outside. Here recently, I pretty much had a calling from a higher being that said, hey, Avery, it's time. You have time. You need to do it. We had a school shooting that was very close to home for me in the state of Florida. And I pretty much answered the calling and started teaching. Right.
Yeah. That, I can't even imagine what that was like to watch that unfold on the news media. And that's in your backyard essentially. Right. So that was it. That was the moment where it crystallized for you. And you said, okay, I hear what you're saying. I'll go do what I can to help people on the outside.
And for me, when it comes to my job, since I do it every day, sometimes I kind of take for granted the skill that I have.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I realized the skill that I had and how I could really impact the lives of others by teaching them a skill that could save their life.
Right. Right. Well, so let's talk about that a little bit. How does your personal path into firearms, as somebody who admittedly wasn't necessarily the best shooter and wasn't really crazy about guns, and you dreaded range day as a recruit, you turned the corner somewhere along there and you got really good at it. After you met that challenge head on, you got really good at it, and now you found yourself teaching special operations operators how to operate operationally with firearms with a level of proficiency. How does that translate into what you teach your students?
As an instructor, I've learned to teach to the lowest level. I know how to dissect what students need, and I can teach, obviously, a special operator all the way down to a child that has never touched a firearm before. I think that's very important to know your students and to be able to tailor your teaching style to whatever student you encounter.
Right. Have you discovered along the way that pretty much everybody's teachable? Everybody has a basic ability to use a firearm effectively, whether they've ever touched a gun, whether they like them or not. That the basics, the mechanics of it can be taught to just about anybody. Is it that accessible to folks?
I think it really is. When it comes to it, there's the basic marksmanship skills that if you can really listen, focus, and apply those skills, you can be a great shooter.
Is there, I'm just thinking my mind's racing because you've got somebody that's worked with some of the top tier military operatives that we've got and trained them how to be more proficient. And then you're taking that and translating it into something that's accessible to a civilian maybe that has never held a gun before in their life, but has watched the news and has said, hey, that's it. I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to protect myself. Right. So the mechanics are there. The basics are there, proper sight alignment, proper trigger pull, etc. Is there anything common, like an epiphany moment that you've seen from the top tier folks all the way down to the new shooter that's never done it before, that seems to be like when the light bulb clicks and okay, they've got it now. They can, now we've got something that we can run with and work with? I mean, is that like a common thing? I guess maybe I'm dramatizing it in my own mind that, the very dramatic music builds up in the background and everybody's like, oh, that's it. They just got it. But what do you see in that kind of setting? Is it different for everybody, or is there generally kind of like an aha moment for every shooter, regardless of their level?
I think that aha moment normally comes when a student is not that confident.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start to get a really good shot group, that's when their aha moment comes, like, oh, you taught me these skills and I've actually listened and I've applied and now I have a really good shot group.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I can see where we've talked about on the show before that men in particular, we're probably terrible students in comparison to women because we all, at least, most of the shooters I've been around, we all tend to be type A type personalities, right? And very competitive, and you were born excelling at everything that you ever touched. And it's like, yeah, I can do this. I can shoot. How hard is it to work in either setting with men versus women? I mean, can you generally say that one of us are more teachable than the other? I know what my wife's rooting for. She already knows the answer to this. So you're laughing.
So my answer is definitely going to be women. Yeah. I do prefer to teach women over men because they normally are very open-minded and they come ready to learn.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that all men come thinking that they know more than me, but when it comes to men, a lot of them think that they know a lot of things that they may not really know.
Right.
There is an ego that's there at times.
Yeah.
But my personality, I can really deal with it very well. And I'm normally the one that's standing back there, smiling when they're not really performing.
Right.
How they think they should be performing,
right.
And when they ask for my help, I'm obviously always willing to help them. But there's definitely a difference in teaching a male versus a female.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I got some more questions about that. We'll get to it here in a few minutes in our conversation. I don't want to throw it all at you at once. So let's talk about your civilian life a little bit as far as a civilian trainer. Okay. What kind of classes do you teach? Are there any classes that are more common than others, or let's just start there.
Okay. So a few of the classes that I teach intro to pistol classes, intro to rifle, also do gun cleaning workshops, youth firearm safety classes, customized private classes where they can tell me, hey, I need to work on this or I need to work on that. And I just customize the class to them. And I also do private one-on-one lessons, Florida CCW courses as well.
Okay. Is the Florida CCW, is that probably one of the more popular ones, or do people generally come in and is it kind of like the gateway, then they do that and then they realize, I don't know what I don't know. And suddenly they're, you've got a whole range of things that you can expose them to, maintenance and things like that.
So I do get majority of my clients through the Florida CCW course.
Okay.
But I do find that, which was very surprising to me, is that a lot of people are not willing to go that extra mile after their CCW course. And in my classes, I explain this CCW is only the beginning.
Right.
Before you carry, you need to be very proficient. And I would advise you to take a professional course before you start to actually carry. So CCW obviously is the most popular course, but I recommend that they take an intro to pistol or some sort of course before they actually start to carry.
We have heard a very similar theme with other instructors that we've had on the show. So I'm in Tennessee, Mark's in New Hampshire, getting everybody sick up there. But we in Tennessee, the CCW course, or it's our HCP, handgun carry permit. The instructors, a good instructor will tell the students, much like what you were saying, this is just the beginning. This is the bare minimum to meet a legal requirement so you can carry a firearm in public. It doesn't necessarily go into anything more advanced than here are the bare minimum laws. And I'll tell you, some of the instructors in Tennessee don't do a fantastic job of keeping current on the laws. For years past, you couldn't carry a firearm in a place of worship. You couldn't carry a firearm where alcohol was served for consumption on property, that kind of thing. And they've changed those laws over time. We still have instructors that teach the old stuff, and we encounter them all the time in social settings, and they're repeating bad information, and you have to sort that out, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that we typically find is that you have one of two types of students, and I don't know, you tell me if you've seen the same thing, but one student goes through the CCW class or the HCP class, they get their permit, and they feel like, okay, that's it. I've got my gun, I got my holster, I got my permit, I got my bullets, I'm set. Right. And then you've got the other student that says, I got these things and I still don't really have an idea of what I'm supposed to do. And that's why advanced training is necessary.
And something else that I see is I will have students that will take a course and they don't even apply for their license.
No kidding.
So I follow up with my students.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them, expect to hear from me in the next 30 to 60 days.
Right.
And I'm going to follow up with them because in the course, I let them know, you took this class for a reason. So this was the first step. Now just continue to follow through with what your vision is.
Right. That's interesting. What are you finding that the students that don't complete the process and get their permit, what were they looking for in that class? Were they just looking for the basic mechanics, the confidence, the knowledge? They're going to keep the gun at home and that's all they ever cared to do with it? Or, did they get into it and it scared them? What are you seeing there?
Some of the feedback that I've heard is, they're just not sure.
Okay.
And I tell people, I'd advise for you to meet our requirements, submit your license, submit the information for your license, get your license. And if the need arises, you have a license.
Right.
And you can carry versus something just happened and now you still need to mail in all your documents.
Yeah. I'm sure in Florida, is it the way it is in my state where when you take the class, you're given a certificate of completion, and then that certificate is required by the state to show that you actually went through the class, right? But ours have an expiration date. I think it's good for 1 calendar year. And if you haven't done something with that certificate of completion within that calendar year, and then you decide later, oh, I really want to apply for my permit, guess what? You got to go through the class again, right?
Oh.
So is Florida like that, or do they?
No, Florida is not like that. And a lot of the students, I know that they're glad that it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I know that life gets in the way and it's a big responsibility to decide to carry a firearm for your protection and the protection of others. I think most of our listeners understand that every time you strap on a gun, you've taken an item with you that's capable of taking another human life. And, I try to look at it and the message that we try to put out there with our audience is flip that around a little bit. It's actually an item that is capable of saving life. Sometimes in order to do that, you have to take a life, but that situation arises because the aggressor chose to be an aggressor. They chose the moment, they chose the path, they committed the crime, they attacked you or, something that was, grievously warranting of deadly force. They made that decision, not you. It's now your decision to, am I going to rise the occasion to defend myself and defend my family and my loved ones, or am I going to be a victim? Right. So I know that it's daunting. It's very serious. So I can understand why somebody might go through the class and then say, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm really going to continue this or not. Hopefully that they do. Yeah. So are there any types of classes that you teach that bring out certain types of students? I'm thinking in particular, you mentioned one that I think is pretty cool. It's the basic firearms maintenance, how to strip down a handgun, clean it, maintain it, keep it going, right? I mean, it's a piece of machinery like your car or anything else. If you like your car and you like the fact that it gets you from point A to point B and it always works when you turn the key, you're going to have it maintained. Same thing with a firearm, right? So what kind of person does that bring out? Is that a more advanced shooter or what?
You don't typically see a more advanced shooter in a gun cleaning workshop because they're more advanced and they normally know what they're doing.
Right.
The gun cleaning. Yeah.
Yeah.
The gun cleaning workshop is typically someone new to firearms. They just recently purchased a firearm. That class isn't as popular as I would expect for it to be.
Wow.
And I really, I educate individuals on the fact that this is pretty much your lifeline. You need to know how to take it apart, how to put it back together, and how to clean it.
Right.
That's not something that I ever want to put that responsibility on someone else. I had a student who told me that the guy at the gun shop offered to clean her gun for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I wouldn't recommend that because, for one, that may get expensive, over time.
Absolutely.
But with my firearm, I want to be intimate with it. I want to know every burr. I want to know every crack with my firearm. That way, if something goes wrong, I know how to pinpoint what it is to tell the guy who's going to do maintenance, hey, this is what's wrong, Right. But if you go to pull your trigger and nothing happens and you don't know how to take it apart, or, you're at a point to where you see something's going to happen, I mean, that's really the wrong time to say, oh, I forgot to clean my firearm.
Yeah. In the classes that I've taken, a common theme from the instructors is the loudest sound in the world is silence when you're expecting a bang, right?
Absolutely.
And so at 2:00 in the morning in the Waffle House parking lot while a guy's got a gun in your face, that's not the time you want to hear a click. Maybe from his gun it is, but not yours. You want your gun to do its job. And so what you're saying is take it seriously. That's an implement. It's a bit of a responsibility to carry a firearm, but part of that responsibility is just get to know the silly thing. How does it come apart? How does it clean? How do you keep it well maintained so that it does its job?
Yes, I try to educate individuals on cleaning their firearms, have a schedule, after your range days, have a plan.
Right.
You want to make sure that you touch this firearm monthly or quarterly, whatever it may be, but you have your everyday carry, which you need to be very intimate with your everyday carry. Mm-hmm. Home protection, you need to be very intimate with that. You need to know if there's a round in the chamber. You need to know if it's well lubricated. But when it comes to maintenance, it's very important.
Yeah. Are you finding that the people that are I'm trying to think of how I want to word this, because I'm kind of wondering if there's a correlation that the serious shooters, the ones that are out there doing more shooting on their own, going to the range monthly or sometimes weekly, whatever, are those the ones that seem to be taking it more seriously on the maintenance side of it too? I hear guys, they do this. They fall in like two camps. It's my Glock. It never has to be cleaned. If it does, I throw it in the dishwasher when my wife's not looking or whatever. Right. Then you got the other guy who comes home after each range session and he gets out the kit with his toothbrush and everything else, and he starts to scrub it and detail strip it and all that stuff. I mean, what are you seeing? And personal experience, what do you see there? Is it kind of like you take it seriously and you maintain it, or is that a generalization that I'm trying to ascribe to people?
I think it really depends on the person. Okay. Because you can have advanced experienced shooters that are so cocky that they think they don't need to clean it, and they can go to the range weekly or monthly, or you can have those guys who do take it very seriously. And after they leave the range, they're going to clean their firearm weekly or monthly, Yeah. But also new shooters, they may be so just overwhelmed by the process that every time they shoot it, they clean it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. It's a new item. It's a new part of your life. You're integrating this into your lifestyle. Maybe you go full bore and now, you're cleaning that thing even when you haven't shot it. It's just, hey, it's Sunday, it's gun cleaning day or whatever. Right. So, I can see that. I see the things on Instagram all the time. And I think it's, the guys that are doing it intentionally, they're trying to do like a torture test of a gun, and you'll see a gun that is so caked with carbon and gross and muck. And it's like, man, that poor gun. It's almost like you want to rescue the gun and give it a good life because it looks like, they've completely, abused the thing. But Yeah, I'm with you. I'm probably more of a maintain that thing every time I go shoot it kind of guy. So believe it or not, we're about to the midpoint. And so I do want to ask you a fun question before we break, and then we'll come back and we'll complete our conversation with you. But one of the things that our listeners have told us that they really like hearing about our guests is, what do our guests carry themselves? So what does Avery's handgun of choice look like for concealed carry?
So I think I may get beat up for this one, but right now I carry a Glock 43, which is my everyday carry. But my Glock 43 is in the shop right now getting some custom work.
Oh, okay.
So I'm carrying a Sig P365.
Okay. Hey, now, so first of all, you've made Mark happy because he's got this running streak where everybody comes on and says they shoot Glocks. I shoot Glocks. On my desk right now, though, I've got an M&P 2.0. What about the 365? So I know about the Glock 43. I like the Glock 43. I'd have one if I didn't buy an M&P Shield first. The 365, though, that thing really has got my interest. What do you think about it?
I really like it.
Do you?
I got my 365 after all of the issues were fixed.
Right.
And it, out of the box, it comes with night sights, and the round capacity for that little thing is pretty sweet because I have more rounds in that than I do in my 43.
Yeah, it's like a 10-round gun, right?
It's a tad bit smaller than my 43.
Is it really?
Which makes it a little bit easier to conceal.
You're kidding me. So which dimension is it smaller than a 43? Is it length, height? Is it what's going on there?
I know I think the slide's shorter.
Yeah. And
then I do use the extended mag, but
yeah,
I know for sure the slide's shorter.
No kidding. Okay, so that's awesome. I was talking about it with one of our frequent panelists on the show, Jordan. He comes on every once in a while and generally brings technical difficulties with him. But I told him the other day, I said, I'm really thinking about a P365 for some reason. I don't know why. I just completed a journey where I sold everything in my safe that wasn't an M&P or a Glock or didn't have some sentimental value. I've got some 1911s and some stuff like that I'll never get rid of. But I thought, I'm going to quit fragmenting my training. I'm going to focus on one or two platforms every time I'm at the range and make it, purposeful. And then the P365 came around and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to bring another platform into my safe. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's cool. I'm glad to hear you're the first person on the show that said they carry a P365. So there you go. That's awesome. Now I'm going to have to go buy one. Yeah. So, I mean, tell me, did you get the 365 because your 43 was going in for work, or did you already have it?
I already had the 365. Yeah. So between me and my spouse, when it comes to our firearms within the household, we like to be able to carry the other person's firearm if needed, because you need to make sure that you're trained on everything that's pretty much in your inventory, because at some point in time you may have to use it.
Sure.
So we had the 365 and my 43 went in the shop, so I had to carry something, and that was pretty much the only firearm that I could conceal.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you think you'll go back to the 43 when you get it back, or are you really liking the 365?
I'm really stuck on my 43.
Yeah.
I have some Trichicon sights. I have a CMC trigger, and I just got some really nice custom work done on it. So it should be done in about a week or so. So I'm excited.
You getting the grip stippled and all that fun stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Cerakote, you going with any crazy colors?
I'm doing a Wonder Woman theme.
Are you really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun. All right. No, that's cool. That is very slick. All right.
I'm pretty sure I'll get some digs about it, but it's my everyday carry, so I really don't care.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm all in favor of anything that makes a person want to carry a gun more often, then more power to them. So my wife likes the pink stuff. So, and like you, we went with when I picked up an M&P 2.0 compact, she liked it, and we got her the smaller M&P compact. So we're very, very much the same way where, we got kind of the similar platforms. I've got a couple Glock 19s. And when I say a couple, that's actually an under exaggeration. I've got a stupid amount of Glock 19s. She doesn't like them. So I don't ever have to worry about her taking those from me. But yeah. So was the 365, was that yours or was that his? Who lost the 365 there?
He lost a 365.
Yeah. My condolences to him. Oh, well.
And, when they first came out, I wasn't really a fan. I kind of hopped on the bandwagon with all of the noise that was out there, of the issues. Yeah. But after taking it to the range, and we ran a plethora of rounds through it before I actually started to carry it, so that once my 43 went into the shop, I was really confident in carrying the 365. And of course, I still go out to the range and do work with it.
Right. You know what? He's probably not sad. That probably gave him a reason to go buy something else, didn't it? So.
Oh, he has lots.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll have to have him on the show sometime soon. What, we'll do an expose on what it's like to be married to a firearms instructor but being a gun guy. Right. So that'll be fun. All right. Well, Avery, if you can stick with us, we'll break. And then after that, we'll finish the conversation. I really want to get into some stuff about, really, maybe you can answer some questions for our female listeners, and also the spouses of our female, listeners, that can help them be better students and such. And also I want to pick your brain a little bit on the aspect of being a gun owning parent, because I know you have kids, right? And we talked about that the other day. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Well, if you'll stick around, we'll come back and we'll finish this up here in just a minute.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody, hang tight with us. We'll be back. Hey folks, David here. Did you know that there is more to the Shooters Nation than this podcast? Mark and I are working hard to knit together a community of well-informed, responsibly armed citizens who are well prepared to face the worst days of their lives. We would like to invite you to join us and the other listeners on our various social media outlets and become an active part of the Shooters Nation community. You can find us on Instagram as @ShootersNationRadio. And if Facebook is your thing, you can find us there at facebook.com/ShootersNation. While you're there, be sure to click on the link to join our Facebook Shooters Nation community. And as always, you can head over to shootersnation.com for more listener resources. Everybody, welcome back to the Shooters Nation podcast. David here without Mark. I don't know if I can emphasize that enough. I hope he feels guilty, that dirty rat. But I am also here with the amazing Miss Avery Skipalis. So Avery, before we broke, hopefully it hasn't been so long in our commercial that the listeners have forgotten what we were talking about. I don't think they have. We got pretty good listeners. We were talking about a variety of things, but I said I really wanted to get back into maybe how you can help us with the conversation of introducing the woman shooter to, I guess, really the armed lifestyle, right? And so maybe she wasn't a shooter before she discovered Skip's Tactical Solutions, but now she is. And so that means something different, right? So let's just start there. How do you help a student, maybe particularly a female student, acclimate to that new lifestyle of being armed?
Well, I think something that's extremely important is to know that, the average person isn't really going to be an advanced shooter. Mm-hmm. They need to know the basic skills so that they can apply those skills. The average woman, you just need to relay it in terms that she can really relate to. I need to let them know that it's something that's going to save not only their lives, but maybe their husband, their children's lives as well.
That's a powerful motivator. Sometimes a person may not, I'll tell you, I've encountered people who have said, I don't, if somebody wanted to rob me and they were going to hurt me or shoot me, I guess it's just my time. But if you say, well, okay, but what about your kids? Now suddenly that's a completely different story. Oh, they're going to hurt my kids? I'm not going to let that happen. Right. So,
yeah,
that's, it's interesting how that switch gets flicked for people when you introduce the children or loved ones in the equation. And that's a very powerful motivator, right?
And so for me, I did not carry. So I'm not going to lie and say, I've been carrying ever since I was legally able to carry.
Right.
Once I realized that I moved into an area that I probably needed to be armed, that's when I started to take it a little bit more seriously, because I thought, if something happens, how am I going to be able to protect my children?
Yeah.
My children are normally with me, I'm picking them up from after school, or, we're going to the store, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself as a parent if I wasn't able to protect my children. So I made sure that I got the tools necessary to be able to protect them. And at the end of the day, I would know that I did everything possible to be able to protect them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. I've seen that very thought process work through with people that had no interest in guns whatsoever. Maybe they were ideologically, religiously, politically, whatever, opposed to the idea until they thought about what happens if I'm no longer here to provide for my kids, to take care of my kids, or worse yet, what if I am incapacitated and then something bad happens to my kids because I'm not there to protect them? And that suddenly makes it very real. And that's a hard thing to sort through, really. I mean, that's a nightmare scenario for a lot of people. And thankfully it doesn't play out for most people.
And another scenario is if you were to encounter someone and your children are there and someone kills you in front of your children, and if that's something that they have to witness, they're not going to be able to recover from that.
Right. Oh, me. So that's a pretty good motivator to help a person acclimate to that and at least cement in their mind why this journey it's a justifiable journey. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to have guns for any other reason than recreation and sport, or hunting, sustenance, or something like that, right? But unfortunately, it's not a perfect world. There are bad people that seek to do bad things, even though they don't know you. They have no reason to hate you, dislike you, anything else, but it's a means to an end to hurt you for whatever their objective is. They're willing to do it. So we have to be willing to protect ourselves. Are there any challenges that you've found with students that, you can't work through them, but you just have to work around them? Does that make sense? Like there's, I think I'm trying to think of how I would give you an example of this, but whether I'm not even thinking like physical difficulties, but just it's a challenge of adopting the armed lifestyle. It's like, hey, look, we're not going to work through this, but we're going to have to just work around it. You're going to have to put that notion aside and trust me until it clicks for you.
I can't really think of anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm just curious about the mindset of people that, I've been fortunate that most of the people that I've interacted with in a setting of gun owners, most people have already mentally and philosophically crossed that bridge where they said, okay, I'm going to carry. It's what I've committed to do. And I've got my reasons, and here they are. Sometimes the reasons are very personal to them. They don't share them, and you have to go on faith that they've rectified it for themselves. Other times they're willing to share with you in great detail why they carry, right? And sometimes you're like, okay, hey, that's TMI. I don't need to know all that. But I've seen some folks that wanted to carry. They wanted a gun. They couldn't really explain to you why, but they still had that prohibition of, I don't know if when push comes to shove, I'm really gonna be able to use it. Right.
I do see that sometimes when it comes to the shooters who have children, specifically mothers, they are not really ready to commit because they're not comfortable with having it in the home with their children.
Okay.
That's pretty much the only chance that I can think of that I've seen. And sometimes, the workaround with that is for them to feel confident, it's going to have to be completely locked up, which I don't agree with it being locked up to where it's going to take you 5 to 10 minutes to get to it.
Yeah.
But if that's going to be their comfort zone, then I even had a student who, when it comes to their home protection firearm, they kept the home protection firearm with the ammo somewhere locked separately than the firearm.
Oh my.
And that was her comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess baby steps, you hope that until they work through it and they get to the point that they're comfortable enough to have it together in a usable package, quickly accessible, that nothing bad happens. At least it's there. But I don't know about, for me, as I think about that, and a person that when I had those conversations with a, quote unquote shooter that they're armed, they've got their permit, they've gone through all the things, but they're still just not sure that they could actually do it. Part of me is just like, hey, you need to leave that thing at home until you're sure, because if you've got it on you and you pull it out, it's not a magic wand. You don't just produce a gun and the bad guy disappears or runs away. Sometimes you've upped the ante, and now it gets real, right? Now the fight is on. Oh, you've got a gun, I've got a gun. Now who's going to use it? And if you're not committed to it, you might be on the losing end of that argument, right? So.
Yes, and that's something that I cover in my class as well.
Yeah.
My concealed carry class, because before you decide to carry, you need to have the correct mindset. If you don't have the right mindset, then for one, you may be killed with your own firearm.
Yeah.
Yep. Or you could just really not have it when you need it. So having that right mindset on coming to terms with what you're willing to, at the end of the day, what you're willing to kill someone for.
Yeah.
And what you're not willing to kill someone for. So when the situation arises, you're ready to step up to the plate and do what you've trained to do.
Yeah, it's a very real conversation at that point. It's a very personal conversation. And I think maybe the reason I wanted to even talk about that is for the, statistically, our listener demographic is what you see at most gun shops. When you walk into most gun shops, it's not filled with a lot of women. It's filled with mostly men. And if the women are there, they're either there purpose driven by themselves because they have a reason to want to investigate purchasing a firearm for themselves, or they're there with a man, that's dragged them in there probably unwillingly. So,
I've been there before.
Right. Yeah. And I've dragged my wife into them plenty of times before, she really got into shooting. Honestly, quick side note, that was like one of the first things we did, dating, was we went and shot. And, I found out she liked to shoot as much as I did. And she didn't know that she did, but she really took to it. And man, that got expensive real quick. Right. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Suddenly my gun and ammo budget became a multiple of 2. And it's like, well, this is going to get old. Yeah, it's one of those things that, if you're not going to commit to it, like you said, you've got to work through that yourself. And the reason I wanted to discuss it was any of our male listeners that are trying to have that conversation with their significant other or with a family member, male or female, that's not completely on board with it. You're just going to kind of have to let them work through it. You can offer input and have that conversation with them and help them sort it out. But ultimately, that decision is going to be theirs. Right. And
so I would like to say this. I do have a lot of men whose significant others are very hesitant on carrying.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll reach out to me and say, hey, can you call my wife? Or, can you talk to them?
Right.
But what I really urge them to do is that person's not really going to think about it from your perspective until you put it into terms that they can relate to. So for me, my spouse worked a shift to where I was home alone, or I would have to be out alone a lot. So if my spouse tells me, I feel like you need to be armed because if anything happened to you, I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
Yeah.
You really have to take that serious. So I tell the males that reach out to me, have you let her know how you feel? If you're completely honest with someone and say, if you were to get robbed while I was at work, I wouldn't be able to handle that,
Right.
And I wouldn't see why a woman wouldn't take that serious. As a male, you want to protect your family, and there's going to be times where you can't protect your family. So as a woman, she needs to be able to protect herself at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, stereotypical man, we communicate in grunts and snorts and we smash on things and, beat hammers and rocks and stuff. Right. But we're not always quick to go to that. I'm going to call it the touchy feely, the emotional side of telling people what our feelings are. And behind all that facade, we have our own fears, our own concerns, and the things that worry us, scare us, and will make us cry under the right circumstances. Not that I've done that recently, but being very serious, that is a that's just, you're going to have that conversation with that person, regardless of whether it's your spouse or your daughter or, your mom or your sister or whatever. You have to have that conversation and it's explain to them in a very real sense. This is why it's important for me that you consider a means to protect yourself. Right. And
Yes.
yeah, that's powerful. I honestly, I don't think we've ever had anybody on the show break it down like that and say, hey, you just need to kind of get down into that hallmark moment and tell them this is what you mean to me. And this is why I want you to be able to protect yourself. That's a powerful motivator. Okay. Well, so, tell me about this then. Is there something that a woman who's curious about firearms training really ought to know in order to be a better customer? So I guess if Avery was to put out a message, a public service announcement to all the female listeners, this is what you could do to be a better customer in selecting the right classes or the right trainer. What would you tell them to help them be more savvy?
First, I would tell them to have an open mind.
Okay.
There's a lot of myths out there when it comes to firearms. It's going to be loud. There's going to be this huge recoil, but not all firearms are going to operate like that. I would tell them when it comes to finding a trainer to do their homework, do your research, a simple Google search, Facebook reviews on their website, actually look up who this person is. Not all personalities mesh. I know my personality when it comes to an instructor. I'm really not the type of student that you need to yell at. You can communicate with me without yelling and I will absolutely do what you need me to do.
Right.
But some students, they need a little bit of tough love. But when it comes to women, there's not a lot of women that you really need to yell at when it comes to instructing. So
Sure.
Do your homework and, you don't know what you don't know. So reach out to a professional. I don't recommend that people get trained by their spouses because there is
Yeah.
a lot of emotions that are tied to that. Your spouses or just someone who thinks that they know the right thing,
Right.
Just go get trained by a professional. It's a quick couple lunches that you're going to put away, If you don't have the money, you can save the money up. We spend money on a lot of different things. We go out to eat, but when it comes to our personal safety, we need to actually invest into our personal safety.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned, the different types of personalities of trainers and finding the one that matches your personality. Yeah, it's 2018. The internet is a thing. You can actually use it to read reviews on classes, after action reports and things like that. But 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I remember that the training industry was a little bit different. There weren't as many. And a lot of them were, I don't know, the stereotypical former, the ex-cop detective who's seen some stuff and, he's really jaded and every other word, he cusses like a wounded pirate. And that's okay. As a guy, I can listen to that. I don't want to take my wife or my daughter to a class like that because I want them to have to listen to that or be treated that way.
Absolutely.
So, now we've got choices. And I think that's the thing that I want to reiterate what you said is just do your research, find the instructor that matches your personality and your learning type, so you don't have to go to the crusty old, homicide detective that's got one leg and whatever. Yeah. You can go to, somebody like yourself who is pleasant to deal with and can train you and teach you without yelling at you and tearing you down to build you back up. That's not necessary. I guess you can get away with that maybe to a degree with recruits, because they don't have a choice, but civilians that are paying out of pocket for a class, they get to choose with their dollars, right? So choose wisely.
And, when it comes to training my students in the military,
Yeah.
I just don't have that style at all. We're taught to teach to a certain level,
Yeah.
and we have evaluations, and those are things that we just are not allowed to do. And when it comes to my job as an instructor, I take it very seriously because I'm teaching them a skill that's going to possibly save their life, right?
Yeah.
So although it's going to be a stressful environment, I try to alleviate as much stress as I can because I want them to retain the information that I'm teaching them. So there's not a lot of yelling. There's not a lot of additional stress on my end that I'm giving to them because I want them to retain every bit of information that I'm giving to them in the short amount of time that I'm giving it.
Right. Yeah. That's the same for civilians. I'd have to think that the training class, that is a very condensed portion of time where it's supposed to be a safe learning environment for you to sort it out, figure out what your weaknesses are, make them better, and then come out of that class a better equipped person, right? Whether that's military or a student. And I think that what you said is very key. A lot of people don't learn well being yelled at. Sometimes you have to kind of jack a person up and get their attention and make sure they're not doing something unsafe, right? So, and in the civilian shooting, classes, I've seen it too, especially if it's something that's just terribly unsafe, you got to get their attention. And if it's an obstinate student that's wanting to, be the alpha as the instructor, you kind of have to figure out how to put them in their place without alienating them and the rest of the class. But still, the class setting is where you're supposed to be able to make the mistakes and in a safe way, but come out on the other side of it better.
Another thing is, ask questions.
Right.
I really encourage my students to ask questions because you don't know what you don't know. And in our classroom environment, there's no such thing as a dumb question because if you don't know it, someone else in the room probably doesn't know it either, but they're just too scared to ask.
Yeah. You said something at the very beginning of the episode, or it was in your bio about, some people, they don't realize that they can learn a new skill or come to a higher level of proficiency until they see somebody that looks like them doing it. Right. And for you, that might mean that, a female shooter looks at you and says, well, here's a, female shooter that's very proficient. She can teach me, I can learn. But as I thought about that, most listeners might not have even fathomed that our military special operations soldiers, they weren't born like that. They started at some point. Every expert starts as a novice. And, the people that we look at and we see the movies about and the news stories about, and these are our heroes. And you think, man, that guy can never miss. That woman can never miss. They're always a dead on shot. They're a top tier operator, whatever. They learned that, from somebody like you who taught them. And so I would say that that's my message to the listener is no matter what skill level you're at right now, you can come to a higher level of proficiency just by investing a little bit of time and getting good quality training from somebody like you.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of people because on my social media, I post little snippets of videos of me shooting. Mm-hmm. And I have people that will compare themselves to me. At a point in my life, I had never shot before. There were plenty of times where, I didn't know, and it was very discouraging. So I'm at a different level when it comes to shooting, but everyone can be on the same level that I'm at because I started at day one as well. So it's just training and actually taking the time to learn a new skill.
I would almost say that you answered a question right there that I was going to ask you towards the end of the interview, which was, how can you make us smarter? And I think that's it right there. If I could put it in all bold and highlight it and make that a headline for the episode, that's it, is that everybody starts somewhere and you can get to that higher level. You've just got to put in the work, and it doesn't always happen overnight. Some people are naturally gifted. Yes. But even the naturally gifted people can come to a higher level with work and tenacity and just the grit that refuses to quit. Right.
Absolutely.
So,
and I've been to shooting schools and, I've learned something from every single school that I have went to. I take little tools and add them to my toolbox, and you just build upon that skill. You have that foundation, and then you just keep building. And then before you know it, you're a badass.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's made, not born with, right? I mean, everybody can make themselves into that. It's just, you got to have the grit to stay with it. And and go to the schools and take the training and figure out what works for you, and discard the stuff that doesn't, right? And just keep going. All right. So I've got one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about how people connect with you and all that fun stuff. So, you're a parent. You mentioned that earlier. What's your philosophy on when you should start teaching your kids about firearm safety, and how did you do that?
I recommend to all of my students and people that reach out to me, I recommend for them to introduce firearms to their children once their children are school age.
Okay.
And, it also depends on the maturity level of your child. If you think your child cannot even handle it, then I would not introduce it to them.
Right.
But once your child is school age, I recommend that you introduce it, because as we all know, firearms are being introduced into our kids' schools now.
Yeah.
And if your child starts to sleep over at other children's homes, you never know what they have in their home.
Right.
So if at any point in time, your child is introduced to a firearm and you're not around, they know exactly what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd rather them know from you and not learn it from little Johnny whose dad has a gun and Johnny just happens to know where it's kept. Right. So,
yep. And you want to teach them the right way. Yeah. And for me, I have 2 boys, and I introduced firearms to my boys, and we did it in the form of paintball.
Oh, did you really? Okay.
Yes. And so I wanted to take the curiosity out of it, because, as you know, boys and me being military, sometimes go into work with me and they would see, oh, look at all these guns, these
That's
are so cool. I see these on the video games, know. So I wanted to take all the curiosity of it. So I let them hold it. I let them shoot it, and it's in a control setting. So I control what happens. And, paintball, it was okay. It was a little heavy. But then when it comes to shooting, say, a 22 or anything like that, it's loud, it's heavy.
Yep.
So for my kids, they don't like to shoot because it's loud. The guns are heavy, and on the video game, nothing's heavy,
That's right. Yeah. 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 It's only as loud as you turn up the speakers or up the headphones.
Oh, yeah.
And it's I think that's actually a very good point, is that, kids, especially when they're old enough, in my mind, I've got 2 older and I got 2 younger, and the 2 younger are, still here with us in the house. It'll be a few years really before my daughter is old enough to start wanting to shoot. She's actually started asking me, when I get older, will you take me to the shooting range? And I'm like,
nice.
Yes, I will. She's 4, right? So she knows, like, when she sees me heading out the door with my range bag and stuff, she knows where I'm going. But it's very, I think, instrumental for them to know that it's loud, it's heavy, it's not always comfortable, and then to see what happens downrange when that bullet impacts. That it makes a hole. It can make a big dust cloud if it's if there's like a earth or dirt backstop, and they start to correlate that thing can do damage. Right? It's not a toy. It's not like on the video games where you shoot the bad guy falls over and then he disappears or whatever, right? This is real. So for me, I'm thinking, when my kids start asking more questions about it, I have to be ready to, meet that challenge head on and be willing to have the conversation and teach them and answer questions and explain the safety side of it. So.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed that a lot of parents, as a parent myself, we don't think that our kids are ready for things that they're actually ready for.
Yeah.
So we tend to wait until it's, I don't want to say too late, but wait until that situation is there, when sometimes we can kind of head it off and talk about those things ahead of time so that they know how to deal with it. But something else that I like to relay, we live in a very video game oriented world nowadays. So I like to tell parents, when it comes to talking to your children about firearms, I tell my kids, this is something that will absolutely kill someone.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to a video game, they're going to respawn, you may have 7 lives left or whatever, but real life, if you point that at someone and you pull the trigger, they possibly will not come back. And there's consequences behind those actions.
Right.
So even when it comes to Nerf guns, we don't go anything above the neck. We practice safety with real guns and fake guns.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, me. I could do a whole episode, I think, on this and talk about how I feel like we as a society, in the interest of doing the right thing and protecting our kids from, very harsh, ugly truths about things like guns and gun violence, we've actually taken away some of the reasons why you would want to avoid it in the first place, right? And the only thing that we've allowed to be there is that noise, that vacuum. What's filled the vacuum is the noise of video games and movies, and that's the only experience that they have. And so it doesn't look any worse than punching somebody. What's the difference for me settling a difference on the school playground with a fist versus, a gun? And they just don't realize it until it happens. And then unfortunately you have tragic events like you guys saw unfold in Florida, where a bunch of kids were exposed to the harsh reality of it. And, it was just tragic, completely tragic. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Okay. So I guess last question I want to ask you about that, second last, I got two more. The second question is for you, recommending something to a student coming through your classes that they're a parent, they've got kids at home. What would you recommend to them for securing the firearm in the house, but also keeping them readily accessible, right? Because that's a delicate balance. You want to be able to get to it quickly enough if somebody's kicking in your front door, but you also don't want your kids to be able to get to it, easily.
I would recommend that they talk to their children about it.
Okay.
I know for me, when I was a child, I like to wander into my parents' closet when they weren't around, so if that's where, at the top of the closet, or, you can educate them on, hey, my firearm is here. It's locked up. Do not touch it, but you want to also make sure that it's secured wherever it is. It needs to be secured, and it needs to be secured in a manner where you can quickly get to it.
Yeah. I've found that the biometric safes are pretty good. The kinds that you can down. For a bedside gun, quote unquote, or a closet gun. I've got my safe, and that's a totally different, level of safety and security. But the gun that is near my bedside, I keep it in a biometric safe, and it's hard enough. It's hard enough for me to undo it. That I think my daughter would have trouble with it too. But why is it that kids love going into their parents' closets anyway? Right? I mean, you said that, and I thought, man, I'm so guilty of that all the time. Growing up, it was always fun to go in there and look at the stuff that I didn't normally see. I don't know why.
Because it's their curiosity. Like, they don't know what's in there, so let's go see what's in there. It's normally fun things, right?
Right. It is. Yeah. I mean, with my parents, it was all boring stuff. Is their clothes and heck, I was a child of the 70s and the 80s, right? So my parents didn't always throw away stuff. And I'd walk in and I'm like, man, you guys used to wear this stuff? This is ugly, right? But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know why it's so lucrative for a kid to want to go into their parents' closet, but that's a real thing.
But something that I wanted to add on, that is, when it comes to off-body carry, as a parent, make sure that you secure that firearm once you get home.
Really?
Because I know for me, sometimes I do carry in my purse. When I come home, it needs to go into my bedroom. It needs to be secured. But if you're off-body carrying and it's in a bag or whatever it's in, you need to make sure that you properly secure that when you get home.
Yeah. We've seen tragic stories in the news of particularly moms with kids. They have the gun in their purse, and the purse is in the back floorboard, and the kids are in the back seat. And then I think there was one story where a child got the gun out of the purse and shot the mom through the back of the seat. Right. And I think she survived, but still, it was tragic that even happened. So you got to be cognizant of, off-body carry. You don't have as much control over that thing.
And you have to, that's another instance where you educate your children.
Yeah.
Although I tell my children, do not go into my purse. I know that they go into my purse and they may get chewing gum or whatever it may be.
Right.
So I know if I'm carrying in my purse, that my purse needs to be on my body so that I can get it to it quickly.
Yeah.
Or it needs to be very close to where it's in my eyesight.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you completely. Not that kids go into my purse. I'm not going to admit to that, but I've come home before, taken my holstered gun out of my, out of the waistband, unclipped from my belt, put it up in a very high cabinet, but I've started as the kids have gotten old enough that they can start climbing and reaching things. When you got little rugrats that are barely crawling, you don't have to worry about that. But when they get to 4 years old, fearless, adventurous, I will scale that thing to get to the candy. Doesn't matter how high it is on the shelf or not. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, not only am I going to put that up there, but I'm going to clear the chamber and the mag's out and the mag goes with me. And, that way, I can drop a mag in my pocket and carry it around without being burdened like I am maybe carrying a gun. Right. So I make sure that thing is completely rendered useless if my daughter were to get to it. But to your point, I think you remove the taboo by teaching them about it. And now it's not so, it's not the shiny, cool gun that I'm not allowed to touch. I'm going to touch it when mommy and daddy aren't looking. It's not a big deal anymore. And they understand the reality of it, hopefully.
They understand that if something were to happen, this is the object that my mom or my dad is going to use to save our lives.
Yep. That's a very important thing. I think that conversation, you made a point earlier that kids learn things and they're more savvy sooner than we think they are. And that's a conversation. I believe that if kids can start asking questions about what it is, they're probably capable of understanding that too, that this is a tool that mommy and daddy use to protect us. It's a dangerous thing, but yeah. Hey, I've had a lot of fun. It's hard to believe that we're already at the end of the episode, but I've had a great time talking with you. And I think our listeners are really going to enjoy this conversation. Before we go though, I wanted to talk about you and Skips Tactical and how folks can connect with you after the show. We've gotten this far into it and we haven't even mentioned that you have a podcast yourself and it's coming out soon. You're working on that and you're going to be releasing it soon. It's going to become a thing for you, but you also do a series of live videos. Why don't you tell our folks about that so they can start following you?
Yes. So if you're interested in following me, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Skips Tactical Solutions. I do a weekly live segment on Facebook and Instagram at 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights where I answer questions that have been sent in to me. And if we have time, I also answer those questions on the live video.
Okay. Now you said that's your soapbox, right? So you have some fun with that.
Oh yeah, I do have a bit of fun with that.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to tune into the next one. So I'm looking forward to that. And how about if folks want to learn more about Skips Tactical Solutions and the training and things that you've got coming up, how would they find you on the internet and track that?
You can head over to my website, which is skipstacticalsolutions.com. And on our website is our courses, our shop, and you can learn a little bit more about me. And if you're really feeling froggy, then you can head over to our Facebook group, which is Skips Tactical Solutions Family. And that's a private Facebook group where you can interact with me, which would be tons of fun.
Yeah.
And our podcast will be launching within the next couple of days.
That's
so
awesome.
You can head over, and the podcast is Skips Tactical Solutions, and it will be on all platforms.
Awesome. All right. So folks can check that out on iTunes and I guess all the different formats that I've lost track of where you can even listen to us anymore. I think that I know they're on Spotify and YouTube and Google, and I don't know. I had somebody tell me the other day I listened to you on iHeartRadio. I was like, I didn't even know that we were on that. And so,
nice.
Yeah, it gets out there. So you're going to be a podcast hero before you know it, and you're gonna be out there everywhere. So that's awesome. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll definitely make sure that we drop those things in the show notes and make sure that our listeners can click over very easily and follow you guys on Facebook and Instagram and all that fun stuff, and then make sure that they connect with you on your website. So very cool. Looking forward to the podcast. I think it's gonna be great. You got a lot of information to share with people and a very, very unique perspective. So Avery, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed having you. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with our audience. And I hope that you'll come back and talk to us again soon. Like I said, I really wanted this to be a very, kind of a get to know you kind of conversation and expose our audience to you and what you teach, especially the folks that are in the Tampa area and surrounding area. I think that it's worthwhile to connect with you and figure out how they can get some good training for themselves or the people they care about.
Absolutely. And if I can say one last thing to all your listeners out there, just train, and train some more. Just remember that this is a journey and you need to continue to learn.
Absolutely. That is very good. We can end on that one. That's fantastic. Absolutely. Folks, that's it. I hope that you go over and connect with Avery and follow them on social, Skips Tactical Solutions on social media, and definitely give her podcast a listen. Heck of a nice lady. I've enjoyed talking with you. Mark's going to hate himself for not being here. I know he sends his condolences for not being here. And so we're not going to forgive him for that. I think he could have manned up. Folks, you can connect with us after the show at shootersnation.com. Again, special thanks to those of you that directly support the show and makes future episodes possible. If that's not you and you want to be that person, head over to shootersnation.com, look for the donate button. While you're on shootersnation.com, the things that you can do for us for free, sign up for the Mail Blast mailing list. We send out news about upcoming episodes, special events, things like that. And also use the idea link. I think it's still a cute little kitten raising his hand because that seems super tactical. There's nothing as tactical as a kitten. So click the kitten. Tell us what you really want us to talk about on the show in the future. Episode ideas, subject matter experts, things like that. We take that to heart and we try to make it happen for you. I know that Mark and I have got just a few episodes left in 2018. We're looking forward to doing a kind of like a Black Friday Christmas gift idea episode. We've got episode, we hope, coming up again soon with our friend Jason Demo. And also we've got a special guest expert that we're working into the show soon that I'll give you a teaser, is in the corrections industry and has a certain insight into the criminal mindset and what kind of makes them tick. So if you're wondering how you can protect yourself against your enemy, sometimes it starts with getting to know your enemy a little bit. Now I'm looking for that conversation. Oh boy. After all that, I guess you could still head over and throw Mark Lancaster at Squared Away Customs some business by visiting squaredawaycustoms.com. While you're there shopping for Kydex holsters and other carry accessories, be sure to use the coupon code ShootersNation to save yourself some cash. Folks, that's it. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. I'm glad we're back, at least 50% of us, the 50% that matters. The other week, 50% will be back here next week after they heal up, I hope. If not, we'll just continue making fun of Mark. So with that in mind, folks, be safe out there. We'll talk to you again soon.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.